Hey everyone, thanks for making it the Summer Creative Retreat. My name is Anjali and I do a lot of bullet journal art, craft and lettering related content on my Instagram and YouTube. You can find me on those platforms by the name of From Anjali's Desk. In this workshop, I'll be teaching you how to create bubble letters. We'll start off with the basic structure of a bubble letter and a simpler way to make them. After that, I'll also show you a couple of variations and enhancements to bubble letters. So let's begin. For this workshop, all you need is a paper to draw on, a pencil for your basic shapes, a pen for your lettering, and then an eraser to remove your pencil marks. Optionally, you can also keep a white pen for correcting your pen lines, and also some colored pens if you'd like to add some color to your bubbles. The basic structure of a bubble letter is this. Imagine a bubble on top of every single stroke of a letter, and then these bubbles combine to form a single element. This might sound a bit complicated, trust me, it isn't. Let's begin with writing a big old capital A with a pencil. Now make an oval around all of these lines individually. And this will look something like this. Now, with your pen, go over all the strokes that are not overlapping. This looks a bit tedious, especially when there are too many letters to write. So here's a simpler way to do it with a lot lesser steps. Again, draw the letter with a pencil, but this time we'll create a bubble around it by making curves directly with a pen. A good tip here is that for the external lines, the curves will face outwards, and for the internal spaces, the curves will face inwards. Alternatively, you can even just add a dot or a line for the internal spaces. Obviously, you might not be able to do the entire alphabet during this workshop, but if you've grasped the logic behind this, we can still proceed. And once you get the hang of this technique, you should be able to do it directly without a pencil sketch, just by visualizing the letters outline. You can either keep the letters spaced out like this or squish them together. For the squish bubbles, just imagine that the letters are stacked next to each other, with the left letter just above the right letter. As you can see here, the leftmost stroke of each letter gets hidden behind the previous letter. Here I'm starting with the J. For the next letter, the base letter will be extremely close to the previous bubble. So when you're making the bubble, you can see that the leftmost line of the K is hidden behind the J. Now that you know how to make a basic bubble letter, let me show you a couple of variations. You can take these techniques as inspiration and create more variations of your own. The first one is this fun one that has varying thicknesses. I like to call this the popcorn font. Again, let's begin with the letter and create bubbles around it. But this time I'm making the bubbles slightly larger on the top. Here's a reference of how your letters could look like in this style. For the next variation, I'm going to make this graffiti style font. Even though this looks slightly different from the previous two, You can use the same bubble letter approach and create this. Here I am starting with an R, but instead of just making curves around the strokes, I am using some straight lines in between as well. You can use the lines to extend naturally towards the corners to create a font like this. For a more unique look, you can add these bulbous curves and swirls. Here I am allowing the curves to venture outside the box, so to speak, to add some serif-like elements. Alternatively, the swirls could go into the letters like in the B or the D. Finally, bubble letters don't necessarily have to always be in capital letters or block letters. You can even have serif letters as well as lowercase letters like this. The technique remains exactly the same as we've done so far. Start with the base shape and then make the curves around the strokes to create this beautiful style. Because bubbles are three-dimensional objects, you can use highlights and shadows to make them a little more three-dimensional. For that, just imagine a light source from one side. For our example, let it be here. When the light hits from a particular side, the shadows would obviously be on the opposite side. Similarly, the areas where the light hits directly would be in the highlights. The shadow and the highlight are generally opposite to each other. As you can see in this example, the shadows are towards the bottom and the right, while the highlights are on the top and the left. Now that you've learned the basics of bubble lettering, let's create some words in particular styles. While I'm adding some color here, you don't really need to. You can just leave them as black and white. The first example is the word cloud. Because clouds already look like bubbles, I am using the squish letter approach here and then drawing a cloud all around it. Next, I'm creating the word Halloween. Here again, I'm creating bubble letters, but I'm adding some squiggly lines. on the tops and the bottoms to make it look a little more slimy. And of course the green for a more Halloweeny effect. In the next example, I am using simple bubble letters to write happy birthday. I'm adding these little triangles and squiggly lines to create the balloon-like stems. Now it just looks like a bunch of lettered balloons. And that's all I have for you in this session. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something new and can take this over onto your lettering compositions. I'm Anjali and you can find me on Instagram and YouTube by the name of From Anjali's Desk. Have fun lettering and I'll see you soon. Bye!